Of course, the president, while he's there, most probably will talk about reopening the schools, which, as we know, has been kind of slow going.
Might not happen. Might not even happen in September.
Crazy. Wow. You know, I know somebody who used to be a substitute teacher who we could talk to about this.
Let's bring in Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, member of the Senate Budget Committee. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning. You heard Peter say he's coming to your city or your state. He's going to be there on Thursday.
I don't have a lot of details. It's always an honor when a president visits your state. I'm sure the president's coming in to say I'm the candy man and I've got more free stuff for you. The problem is that there's nothing free. Anything free somebody had to work for. The president's plan is not an infrastructure plan. Only 5% of it goes to infrastructure. It's really a Green New Deal and welfare plan, and it's a mess. It looks like somebody knocked over a urine sample. Now, we can fix it if we stick to A, infrastructure, and B, we have serious discussions about how to pay for it. I can tell you how we can pay for it. We can reduce some of our spending. We spend $144 billion a year on improper payments, including to dead people. We don't have to give our federal employees a pay raise every year. We can repurpose some of the coronavirus money that we don't need. We clearly aren't in an economic crisis. I will give the president credit in one respect. I'm not for raising the corporate income tax, but there is a tax loophole, a special interest loophole, that I'm willing to talk with him about. It has to, I won't bore you with the details, but it has to do with what's called intellectual property and transfer pricing. I'll give you an example. Coca-Cola just got tagged by a federal judge for $3 billion in back taxes for cheating on its taxes. And it did it by moving its recipe for its syrup to other low-tax countries like Ireland and others, and some clever accounting, and they got caught. And I think a lot of multinational corporations do that. And I'm willing to sit down and talk with the president about how to close that loophole. I know it's hard to believe that a company our CEO as virtuous as the CEO of Coca-Cola would do that, but nonetheless he got caught.
Yeah, well, he's pushing to move.
And there may be some potential to raise money there. But I'm not for raising corporate income taxes across the board because the employees are the ones that are going to pay for it.
Absolutely. They're going to move to other countries. The corporate tax is not for us. It's to get these companies to come back home and start building stuff here, get one excuse out. I'm just going to run through some of this. When you say we're in an economic crisis, no doubt about it. In 1930, we're in an economic crisis. In 2008, we're in an economic crisis. Now we're not. Minnesota has a surplus of $1.6 billion. Michigan's got a surplus of $2.5 billion. Do you know there's a $15 billion surplus in California, in the surplus of $5 billion in Colorado, Rhode Island, $44 million. They have as a rainy day fund. Oregon, $500 million. Where is the crisis here that says we got to go write a $6 trillion budget bill, or $6 trillion in spending, or $2.4 in infrastructure? There is no crisis.
No, there's no crisis. And we've known since December. When we got December numbers, we knew. Everybody in Washington knew. We haven't been in a crisis for several months. That's why the last bill that President Biden passed was so expensive and unnecessary. It wasn't even about coronavirus. And we're not going to spend all that money immediately. We don't need to spend it now. We're not in a crisis. Some of that money is supposed to be spent over the next 10 years, and I think the higher and better use of it is to spend it on infrastructure.
Yeah.
But nobody, I can tell you, nobody on Capitol Hill truly believed that we were in an economic crisis when we passed that bill.
Well, but they used the coronavirus pandemic as the impetus to try to get that ball moving. So far, it has been very effective. Senator, once upon a time...
Well, here's a news flash. Sometimes politicians lie.
Yeah.
Now, some politicians lie, we've learned, because they forget, but others lie because it's useful. And there were a lot of lies told about the so-called economic crisis and why we needed to pass the last bill. That's why I voted against it.
When you divide,
I mean, I didn't fall off the rutabaga truck last night.
I have one more question about this before we move on to the next subject. When you say only 5% is going to infrastructure, and once that's divided by all 50 states, are you going to be able to get the bridges that you want? Don't you need a bridge in Lake Charles?
Well, that's the other thing I would like the president to do. The president's going to control a lot of where these projects are built, and I want to make sure that other states besides California and New York get some infrastructure. And I've also said that they need to talk specifically about some of the projects that they are considering. But only 5% of what he's proposed is infrastructure. Yeah. The rest is welfare. It's Green New Deal. It's redistribution. And he says it's free money. He's the candy man, but nothing's free. You know, anything free, somebody had to work for.
Well, he also said that he would have a majority of the schools open in the first 100 days. That has been problematic. Senator, once upon a time, I understand you were a substitute teacher, right?
I still am. I've been doing it several times a year since 2003. I'm very pro-teacher. I'm afraid, I hope I'm wrong, but one of the deepest scars left by the coronavirus will be the fact that we'll lose some of our kids educationally.
Yeah.
And look,
I
can't name you the first 6 presidents of the United States in proper order, but I'll never forget my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade teacher.
You were right.
And so many of these kids are missing out, and it's so avoidable. I mean, all the president has to do is stand up and be very firm. The teachers aren't the problem; it's their leadership. It's the teacher unions, and he controls the purse strings. He can fix this. He can fix this by the end of the week. And for the life of me, I just don't understand why he won't do it.
But I think you were right. I think it's the teachers' unions. They have so much political clout. One of the president's senior advisors, ANITA DUNN, was on yesterday, asked about, okay, so the schools are not fully open now. How about the fall? You know, 80% of the teachers are already vaccinated. She would not commit to that. Listen to this, Senator.
He said probably. He didn't say absolutely. But given the science, if the vaccination program in this country proceeds, if people do go get their vaccines, he does believe that schools should be able to reopen in September and reopen safely following the CDC guidelines. But he said probably. He did not say absolutely, because we've all seen this since, unfortunately, January of 2020. It's an unpredictable virus. We can't look in a crystal ball and say what September looks like.
Senator, you are a teacher, a substitute teacher. Who is Joe Biden worried about? The teachers, the students, or the unions?
Well, his spokesperson, what did she just say? That's just the biggest bunch of bovine waste I've ever heard. Look, I'm very pro-teacher, but I think that many of our teachers' leadership, they know we've just given bucket loads of money to states that they don't need, except, you know, New York and California. They need it because they wasted so much during the pandemic. But they know the states don't need a lot of this money, so I think the unions are holding out for more pay. In the meantime, our children get hurt, and what's so avoidable and a shame about all this is President Biden can fix it. He says he's the education president, and talks about Dr. Biden, who is his spouse, a very accomplished woman. But they don't do anything about it, and they could. And they send out a spokesperson like the person who just spoke.
ANITA DUNN.
They think the American people are morons.
Yeah.
That's the biggest bunch of bovine waste I've ever heard in my life. I don't know what she said. I think she's speaking in tongues.
Well, here's what she said. I can't predict September, but we're opening up. By July 1st, all these states and cities are opening up. We're predicting that, but we can't predict September. It's good enough for a 4th grader to go to school and a teacher to meet him there? You got to be kidding me. This is so inexcusable. This is a lost year of development.
It is.
With people that supposedly care the most.
It's more than a lost year. It's more than a lost year. And put the politics aside and the scoring of the points. This is going to leave a deep scar. And it's going to hurt our kids who need the help the most. A lot of middle-class kids and upper-middle-class kids, their parents are going to figure out something. Send them to private school, send them to a charter school. But it's our kids from poor families. We're going to lose I hope I'm wrong, but we're going to lose almost, I'm not going to say a generation, but a large portion of a generation of kids here, and it's so avoidable. And all President Biden has to do is grow some oranges and stand up and say to the unions, no, we're going back to school. We're going back to school, and I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
I guess it was maybe a year ago, some of the celebrities were talking about Disney World and some of the stories that our children are reading about. Remember Cinderella? People were saying, oh, I'm not reading this book to my child because it's a fantasy to believe that, you know, she's going to be happily ever after if she marries this prince. Now they're doing this with Snow White, because at the end, when she's asleep, the prince saves her with a kiss. And so there's this publication, the San Francisco Gate, that writes this: the new grand finale of Snow White's enhanced wish is the moment when the prince finds Snow White asleep under the evil queen's spell and gives her true love's kiss to release her from enchantment. A kiss he gives to her without her consent while she's asleep, which cannot possibly be true love if only one person knows it's happening. So now they're trying to cancel Snow White. Your thoughts?
This ride at Disneyland.
You know, sometimes I think we are so screwed. I don't know where these jackaloons come up with this stuff. I don't mean to be mean. I'll try to be nicer if they'll try to be saner. And I shouldn't discourage it, I guess, because so many of my Democratic friends believe in it. But it's just such utter nonsense. I doubt very seriously there are more than a handful of moms and dads in America when they lie down to sleep at night and can't, that are worried about a cartoon. And you know, I feel sorry. The people pushing this, I feel sorry for their dog, for God's sakes. It's just it's just so it's so over the top.
Right, the only cartoon.
But this is America. You can believe what if you want to make a fool of yourself, you can. You're free to do it.
No problem with the Flintstones?
Not
Is that
yet.
okay? All
Not yet.
All right, good.
Now don't be messing with the Flintstones.
I know.
Now you've gone to
Well, they're not fair to the Brontosaurus, right? Is
Those
it true
guys
that
are cavemen, Brian?
Fred made the Brontosaurus work in a quarry all day, and that's the problem?
I forgot about that. That was their tractor.
Yeah.
Right.
And Fred had no shoes. It makes it seem bad. And he wore a unitard.
And look, politically, this is what I don't get, because a lot of my Democratic friends support this stuff. Politically, it's about as popular with the American people as head lice. I mean, they're so out of touch with the lives and the concerns of ordinary Americans.
I don't
know why they spend their time on this political correctness.
Right.
All
But
right.
they do.
Senator, I would love
And
to
it's
sit in your
America.
class one day, but I feel like I've just done that for 15 minutes. We thank you very much
Thanks,
for joining us
Senator.
today.
It would definitely be better than head lice
Thanks,
sitting
guys.
in his class.